Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Dogs Down South. It's good to be with you tonight. I'm your host, Ted Turner, and I'm excited. We are officially really close to August 1st. Next week kicks off fall camp. Kirby does a really good job of not really, advertising when fall camp starts. I think with all the social media, and if you follow players, whether they be on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, they kind of give some things away. And but he keeps that pretty close as far as what he's doing and when he's starting. But I have that gut feeling that one day next week, we will see practices fired up. For media, usually they have a practice and then we get the gist that it's going on, and then we hop in and it's off to the races from there, which kind of gets us to, let me look at my countdown. Let's get a countdown going on for viewers. 36 days until Georgia plays its home opener in Athens between the Hedges. Tonight's going to be a really good episode. I got a feeling it's going to be a part 1 and a part 2. And I'll tell you why. It's because we just got off of completing our SEC summer preview. We've had a summer filled with breaking down every single SEC team that Georgia will play in the regular season, as well as previewing all the other teams and what we can expect from them this year. But tonight is solely based off of a lot of hot takes, probably a Georgia kind of a preview and kind of, saving the best for last per se. And we're going to do it a little bit different. Obviously, we could sit here and talk about starters and what we think about this and that and the other, but I thought it would be really cool to hop in and just talk some hot takes, throw some things out there, give some extra takes, and just really introduce more of what we think this team will look like and what we can expect this year through some things that may come true, things that may not, but also talk about if these things come true, we feel like there's a good opportunity for Georgia to make a deep run, not only in the SEC, but in the college football playoff. But if some of these things don't come true, where does that leave Georgia? And what does that mean for the season, right? So let's hop right in. However, I want to start here because there's a couple of things here that I did not expect to really talk about. Two big topics I really didn't expect to talk about much, but Kirk Signetti. If nobody has been on planet Earth in the last couple of years, you would know Curt Signetti he is the coach at the University of Indiana. They just came off a national championship winning season last year, and also, had the Heisman Trophy winner, first pick in the draft. And, the big thing I'm hearing is Kirk Cignetti is officially the best college football coach out there right now. They have him ranked higher than Kirby Smart. Some people have Ryan Day actually ranked higher than Kirby Smart. But I thought, I wasn't really going to enter into this topic, but I thought it'd be a cool icebreaker tonight because, Curt Cignetti went out there. The Big Ten had their media days, and it's not very heavily publicized, obviously, because the Big Ten is not very, in my opinion, heavily publicized because they want to be the SEC so bad, but they fall so short. But he obviously opened his mouth. And, my thing tonight to really talk about before we get into our Georgia hot takes, what has Curt Cignetti done to even hold a candle to Kirby Smart? I mean, everybody has him on this list of he's the best coach in college football. He's, he deserves that right. So I thought it would be cool. Number one, I want to share the comment, and I also want to talk a little Kirby Smart, Curt Cignetti, and these are not my statistics. I'm pulling these straight off of the old Google. Like, you can Google this. This is public knowledge. You can even go as far as ChatGPT, and then they'll give you the same things, because I don't want this to be about my opinion. I want this to be straight facts. Okay. First off, straight facts are that he did make this comment that The Big Ten is the best league in football. He said, we don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. We believe everything's earned, not given. And when we fall short, we say we fall short. When we don't, cry river and whine and complain. All right, that's why we're the best. Listen, I have no idea how in the world you think you can just because you go out there and you win one national championship and the guy looks like he's not even real, right? And he looks like AI. If I've ever thought AI was on the sideline, here you go, right? And I'm not talking bad. I'm just telling you the truth. Like, he has no emotions in a lot of scenarios. He just says stuff like this. Like, the one thing you really didn't hear a lot of at the SEC media days was you didn't hear a lot of this banter, right? Nobody came out there and yes, coaches were like, I feel like I feel like the SEC is the best conference in college football. Okay. And as it should be. I think coaches should talk very highly of the SEC. I think it is well ran. The Big Ten has props to be given that, they have some very competitive teams and it's run really well. But like, nobody got on stage and said stuff like this, right? So like, this just kind of digs at me, and it digs at the fact that who the heck does Curt Signetti think he is, right? He hops on here and I guess he's seen some of the stuff that's being talked about as well. He's seeing, his, equivalences to either being as good or better than Kirby Smart and all these things. Well, I thought I would just share some statistics with you. Okay. And like I said, these are statistics you can find. You can find them if you go Google them right now. Statistically, Kirby Smart is 117-21, which gives him about a .848 win percentage. Curt Signetti is 46-6 and gives him about a .885. But in 117 wins and 21 losses, you're literally microseconds behind that win percentage, right? Bowl record 9-4 Kirby Smart, 3-1 Curt Signetti, 4 SEC championships for Kirby Smart, 1 Big Ten for Curt Signetti, 3 SEC Coaches of the Year, and 2 AP Coach of the Years, Brian Award, Big Ten Coach of the Year, yada yada. Record versus top 10 teams, 27-11, 6-2 for Curt Signetti. So when you look at Kirby Smart and you look at through his first 4 FBS seasons, no active coach has had a better winning percentage. None. Now, I would say if Curt Signetti keeps it up, he might could get close to that. 2 national championships for Kirby Smart, 4 SEC championships, sustained success over 10 plus seasons, more than 100 wins at the highest level of college football. Okay. What does Curt Signetti have going? Obviously the program turnaround at Indiana is incredible. Arguably one of the greatest rebuilds in college football. They went from one of the nation's historically weakest programs to a national champion in just 2 seasons under Signetti. I get it. Right. But bottom line, when you look at Kirby, best overall coach today based on complete resume is Kirby Smart. Still has the edge. If it's an edge, right? Championships and sustained excellence, Kirby Smart, bar none. Pure winning percentage, it does go to Signetti, but not based off of the amount of games. Most statistically impressive early career, I get it, Curt Signetti. But like, how are we talking about this right now? Right? I want to see what Curt Signetti can do this year, and I'm sure this clip might be pulled later on, but what can he do this year where you have a little bit of adversity, you have roster turnover, right? We get it, Indiana has a billionaire back in their program, and you don't hear much about how much they're spending, things of that nature. We have an offensive line that averages the age of 35 and all these things, and that's great, man. But can we just knock it off about the fact that Curt Signetti is the best coach in college football? Because right now, there's, without a shadow of a doubt, that's Kirby Smart. Like, it is. You Google it, you chat GPT it, you let me know. If you're saying something different, it's because you have this biased opinion. This is not me having a biased opinion. This is me looking at things statistically and going, it doesn't add up. It doesn't measure up. If anything, Ryan Day probably has a closer shake at that, but Ryan Day obviously had his moments the past few seasons that he's had some, borderline was almost fired at Ohio State and he couldn't beat Michigan. So don't want to go into that, but I just kind of want to squash the rumor on Curt Signetti. It's like, man, like, knock it off, dude. Like, you're probably the only coach that's sitting at media days right now that's trying to sit here and talk smack about your conference. You don't need to. You don't need to. You don't need to draw any more attention to the Big Ten. You don't need to draw any more attention to Indiana. You're on the map, man. You're on the map, right? It's about as much people as use ChatGPT as about as much people realize who you are. Okay. And that's probably a lot. But as far as you saying meaningful things, can you please do that? Because we're sick and tired of hearing you. All you do is sit there and act like that your words that you have to say carry so much weight, but they all are just so robotic. And it's ridiculous. Second person kind of on my list while I'm just kind of going down this list. And it begins, man, like we're covering Georgia, 100% outside of this, but I thought it would be just, to kind of cap off before we start talking SEC and Georgia is, the darling per se of SEC media days was obviously Lane Kiffin. I think one of the strongest showings was Kirby in Georgia. I think Texas took on a big persona when they were in the building. There's a lot of pressure on Texas, a lot of pressure on Arch and Sarkisian, and I think if they don't produce this year, you got problems in Texas really quick. I think they're going to be good. But it's so funny. It's like everybody's like Texas. Who has the best roster? Texas. Who has the best opportunity? Texas. Who has the best? Texas. But yet, at the end of the SEC media days, everybody chose Georgia. It's just, I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. It's really all because this has just become really out of hand as far as like how much you're spending on your roster, how much you're doing to go out there and bolster your coaching staff, how much you're doing as far as donors, how much your team is, you're playing the tough teams and you're doing all these things, and Sarkisian is this, and you have a Georgia problem. So I think the media even though they're covering it and they're hyping this up, they always come back to, hold on, Texas has a Georgia problem. I feel more confident that until you beat Georgia, it's Georgia. It's Georgia's path, right? It's kind of like Georgia and Alabama. It's like, you hate saying this out of your mouth, but it's like until Georgia beats Alabama in the regular season consistently, it is going to be a circle game on the map. Do I think Alabama is going to be statistically and on paper not as good as they've been in the past, and this is going to be another continued year of digress? Yeah, I do. But still, when it comes down to Georgia, Alabama, everybody is freakishly nervous about just going and being very confident, especially going into Tuscaloosa, that Georgia's going to beat Alabama because of the same reason. Until you do it and do it consistently and not do it in the postseason, in the regular season, we're just going to have a hard time picking Georgia over Alabama in the regular season. But Lane Kiffin, Texas was a name that was talked about, but the darling of everything, and everybody wanted to hear Lane Kiffin. And one of the hottest questions that was asked was talking about his take on recruiting when he was at Ole Miss. And see Mike from SEC podcast asked him a tough question about an interview that he had, and he ducked and dodged it and went into conversation about who knows what. And he talked about his dad a little bit. He talked about Nick Saban a little bit. He talked about, he referred to, storylines that he watched growing up. And when you look at all these things, he really ducked and dodged the fact that he missed out on having to be accountable to any questions. He almost spoke for like 15 minutes of like intro stuff, right? Barely any questions came his way. Hulk Hogan is what he referred to. He said he thought that Hulk Hogan would never die, right? And it made him start to think, and then he kind of went into, this is the reason why I took the job at LSU, but he ducked the question as far as why he felt like it was not easy to recruit in Oxford, and a lot of stuff that he said he regretted, things of that nature. But here's my thing around Lane Kiffin, right? Here's my thing. Lane Kiffin has, some people have equivalent to $50+ million roster with coaches and what they're paying out in certain areas. It could get up higher than that, right? It could get into 70, 80, 90 million dollars. But Lane Kiffin spends upwards of 70, 80, 90 million dollars on a roster. He goes out and he gets these questions about how good he thinks he'll be this year. questions about the team, this, and that, and the other. And he continues this narrative about, you guys expect me to just be able to go out and win at LSU, like first year. Okay. Well, why can't you? Like, why can't you? You're known as the Portal King, and you like living up to that name. You like talking about how you like living up to that name. And you've gone in the portal and you've nabbed everything. If it was sitting on the shelf, you were going after it, including going into Tennessee and nabbing Sam Levitt. I mean, I think Sam Levitt at Tennessee was a done deal, and you went in and you put your price up, met him in the apparently headed him off in the airport and all these things, and next thing you know, Sam Levitt is a Tiger, right? But like, how are you sitting there with a $50 million, upwards of, plus when you have the coaches, $80-90 million roster, and you say things like, you can't just expect us to come out and win. It's going to take time. And then, I mean, $40,000 of booster funds go as far as you just kind of send that bill out to the boosters for your vacation for your family, right? Here's my thing, man. You're allowed. I mean, let me sidebar this. I respect Lane Kiffin as a really fantastic play caller and a really good scheme-minded coach, right? When we start to get into ethics and we start to get into culture, when we start to get into the logistics and the mentorship as far as being a coach in college football, this guy's terrible, man. Like, he's basically putting it out there, and he'll tell it to you as quick as the sun comes up. He'll say, you either do it or you get behind the 8 ball and you're the next one fired. Okay. If you want to sell your soul to the devil and go and win national championships, and that makes you feel better how you sleep at night, so be it. But I can tell you that I know what some people will say. They'll look at Georgia. You got a $40 million roster. You're right. But retention was what Georgia did a really great job at this year. They went into their roster, and whether it's spent here or spent there, I get it. But it continues to tell you the story behind Kirby Smart wanting people to be bought into the tradition of being a Georgia Bulldog, right? Athens, Sanford Stadium, the camaraderie of being a dog, right? Vince Dooley, UGA, the things that make Georgia who Georgia is, playing between the hedges, right? Stegman Coliseum. It feels different in Athens. And he's selling that. And when you get in there and you see it, he's wanting to make sure that, you know what? I don't want the stuff to eat at you that will start to tempt you to make you make the wrong decision. So we take care of retention and we retain our roster, and we go out there and we try to get what we need. And it might still be and it probably is a $40 million roster. But it's really different than the LSUs and the Ole Misses and the South Carolinas and the SEC and, the Auburns. And it's really different, man. It's just different. Even the Indianas and the Oregons and the Ohio States, it's just different in Athens, man. It's different. So I pride myself on being a Kirby Smart loyal, not just because I'm a dog, but just like, just being a guy that looks at Kirby and goes, man, he just does it the right way, right? He was super cool to see Kirby doing so many interviews. He seemed loose. A lot of questions. He seems to feel like this team he's really excited about the leadership on this team. If you go back and check out the last few episodes, especially last week, 2 weeks ago, I literally covered the entire SEC media day interview with Kirby, broke it down, talked about every single question he had, broke it down, and kind of went through some things. And so go check that out. I think it was the last episode we posted. So before we hop in, thank you so much for the support. I'm excited about this season. As you look at some of the things coming ahead, we got some branding things that are going to be new. Obviously, we are very close. I think we're 3 followers away from hitting our 3,000 mark over there on TikTok. So if you haven't done so on TikTok, go and like and follow us, Dogs Down South, on TikTok. We're so close to hitting a small milestone of 3,000 followers over there. And a lot of this episode 1 and 2 will be clipped here or there, and there'll be a lot of things coming out on TikTok as well as day-to-day. If you're looking for day-to-day stuff from Dogs Down South, TikTok is your place to be, okay? When we go live, obviously, YouTube Dogs Down South, Facebook Dogs Down South. If you're following us on any other platform, YouTube, I think I mentioned this already, but YouTube's blowing up. Appreciate all the likes and follows over there. Then obviously Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Make sure that you go follow us over there. Because if you happen to miss it and are looking for it 24 hours later, you can go grab the episode, listen to it on your way into work or on your way home from work. So, but let's dive in. Obviously, so much to go over. Like I said, this is probably going to be a two-part, but we're definitely going to hit the first part tonight. We're going to dive in, see how much we can get accomplished, and really talk some hot takes and talk, you know, I think once we get through this, we'll have a really good emphasis and a good, per se, database of like what we're looking for this season as camp starts and as we start to see numbers and players running around and things of that nature. It'll give us a real big glimpse and it'll challenge us to really think outside of the box of who are going to be some of the playmakers we can rely on, who we're looking at, and we're gonna see really quick in those first week or two. Probably by scrimmage 2 is when we really start to hone in on who's going to be getting most of the snaps and who's going to be, as far as early on players to see some quality time. You're probably going to see that start to really come to life by about scrimmage 2. But it's exciting, man. It's exciting. I mean, the fall candles were on sale at Bath and Body Works last week. So many indications that we're right around the corner from college football starting. So let's hop in real quick, okay? Hot take number 1. I have things that are outrageous on some of these, but could happen. And I want to talk about a little bit of it. Like I said, we're going to take our time. We could do a segment 1 and segment 2. We're going to take our time with each one of these, okay? So hot take number 1. Georgia goes 12-0 and still doesn't finish number 1 in the final regular season rankings. Now, it's very possible. It's very, very possible. I'll give you one example why. There's some schools out there that are called Notre Dame that continue to get this puppy treatment from the NCAA and the playoff committee, and they get these new rules set up for them. It's like, if you lose 2 games and I don't know, you just fall short by 3 points and, you do a leprechaun dance, spin around, clap your hands, you get into the college football playoff. That's our rule for you. I know that's a little out there, but it really is. And I see Notre Dame. Notre Dame has, they have Miami on their schedule. They have a couple of really good teams on their schedule. For the most part, I would tell you that it's very high and it's very low. You got to get a couple games that are going to stretch you, that are going to be tough games. Then I feel like you have about 10 of those games that are like, you should win, right? And when you look at things like a lot of people are saying 10-2 Notre Dame team gets you into the playoff. Pretty sad. I mean, I think 10-2 in the SEC gets you in the playoff. I even think some 9-3s, depending on who you played and beat and who you played and lost, should get you into the college football playoff. We're a long way from that, but I do think this is a very good take because Georgia could. Now, I think more so the big thing about this hot take is can Georgia go 12-0? This is a better schedule than previous years, but you still have, those games you have circled. You have to play Oklahoma early at home. Oklahoma's going to be a really good team this year. You got to go to Ole Miss in Oxford and play a team that later in the season, and we're going to really see what Pete Golding and this team is about, and we'll see if they've hit their stride and are firing on all 4 cylinders, or they've hit some bumps in the road, and maybe that's a time where it's a good time to catch them. But either way, it's Ole Miss, it's Trinidad Chambliss, and Kejuan Lacey, and it's still a really good defense. And Pete Golding and a staff that is decently well put together still from the last 3 years, that you got to go play them on the road. So that's another game that's really tough. Obviously, you add Alabama in Tuscaloosa as well. So that's a third one there. And, you can't overlook games like, you're going to South Carolina. South Carolina could be the Jekyll and Hyde this year. They could either be really good or they could be really bad. And I could see some storylines where they could be really good. I don't have them being exceptionally great this year. If you go and catch my breakdown on SEC Summer Preview, my upside for them is really high. I mean, I like Lenore Sellers. I like some of the things that South Carolina's going to have the opportunity to do. But you got to go to William Rice, man, and it's late in the year, and if they're going and they're hot and they have it going and they're injury free, I mean, I think everybody will will say it like this, if you're hot at the end of the year, if you're hot and if you are healthy, that's a good place to be in the playoffs towards the end of the year and for conference championships. You got to be hot, you got to be healthy. Hot take number 2: Kirby Smart wins another SEC championship before winning another national championship. Now, for dog fans, this is a tough topic because this is something that if you ask them, obviously, like, which one do you prefer? A lot of people are going to say, I prefer the national championship. I think this team has a really great opportunity to do some damage this year, barring they stay healthy and barring some things go their way as far as some of these newcomers transfers and some of these younger guys stepping up and performing like we know they can, but do they, right? So that's kind of my take on that. But if I had to answer that hot take, I do think Kirby Smart, if I tell you what he has a better opportunity of doing this year, I think there's a lot of focus on winning it all this year. I think they have the makeup to do it, but I think he values both. You're never going to hear Kirby Smart not value the SEC championship until you give him reason not to value it, right? Until you look at him and go, it doesn't make any, it doesn't move the pendulum left or right. We don't value it. We don't even play it. We just name one. And if it's a tie, we have these tiebreaker things, and so be it. I don't think you'll have Kirby really gung-ho about something if you don't have it on paper that it's important. And I could be wrong. But I do think that my take on that is that he's really going to be dialed in, especially with the last 2 years, having the early exit out of the playoffs. Number 3, Georgia finishes with the nation's number 1 defense again, even if the offense gets most of the headline. Now, this was a really good one. And also, I want you to know that this is a compilation of questions from email, from people that have asked me questions that were great. I kind of go around sometimes and I ask people, give me some hot takes, man. Also reading some of the sports writers out there that have these hot takes thrown out there. I think that Georgia's defense is going to be very good this year. I think they're going to be very, very good, barring they can stay healthy. I think this could be a defense that could be very similar to the national championship years. I've always said that those defenses those years really gave the opportunity for, in my opinion, and let's just be honest, it was very similar to the likings of a lot of sports writers when they were writing about Stetson Bennett. I feel like people are writing the same thing about Gunnar Stockton. They're gritty. They're very in tune, and they definitely are a person that you look at and they're leading this football team. They're likable. They're somebody that this team depends on. They can flash at times, whether it's with their legs or with their arms. All these things sound like Stetson Bennett. They do to me as well. So this has the makeup and the feel of that, of some of those teams, right? Especially with the defense. And the question is the defense going to be better, or is the offense or is it going to be that the defense doesn't get exposed as much because the offense is much improved? I'm going to lean towards this defense is going to be much better this year, but the offense, I think, has a chance to be sneaky good. Do I think the offense is going to have a lot of that demeanor of we're going to line up and we're going to run the football? I think Georgia has an incredible offensive line, and I think they're going to try to run the football. Side note, obviously Dante Dowdell really don't know what's going on with him for the future. We wish him well. We mentioned the injury to him on the last episode, but praying for Dante. Hope he continues to get better. And the goal is health over football. And so we hope he makes a big recovery from all this. And if it's God's will for him to be back this year, great. Obviously, we went out and got Dante Dowdell because we thought he would be a huge asset to the running back room. I don't think that changes a lot about who the 1 and the 2 is going to be, or even who was going to be taking some of those, I would call it, uh, kind of snaps in the backfield on third down that Cash took, and that's going to be, Dwight Phillips. So, yeah, I mean, I think this offense could be, but I would lean more towards the defense being really good this year and just giving the opportunity for the offense to play loose and to be more. I mean, when you have a defense that's controlling the game and you can control the run and the clock, it really causes fits for football teams, especially if you're a passing team. Number 3, I'm sorry, 4. One freshman becomes a household name before Halloween. I love this. I love this, before October. And I would honestly say yes. Like, I like this. The biggest, one freshman becomes a household name before Halloween. Man, it makes you wonder, and it makes you start to think, like, obviously, who is this? Household name is tough, but the two people the one person I think about in here is Zyke Helton. Okay. He's going to probably more than likely start at right guard. I think he will be a person talked about. He has come in and he has done an incredible job. He has turned some heads. He's a young kid, but he has taken on camp and spring, and his preparedness has been taken on like he's a junior in college, like he's trying to get a spot on an NFL team. And that's just something you don't see anymore. Do I also like the name Caden Prothrow and how they're going to try to get him into some situations to get him some touches? Yes, I like Caden Prothrow. Do I think he'll be a household name? We'll see. They're definitely going to have to get very, not tricky, but creative in how they get him the ball and work situations and how they line him up, things of that nature. But that's another one that could be on that list. But I think the easy answer to that is Helton on that right side of the line, or just at the guard spot is definitely going to be a really good possibility, kind of like Juan Gaston, to see some major snaps this year for Georgia. Biggest offensive star that isn't quarterback, I'll take number 5. Biggest offensive star that isn't the quarterback this year is very easy. I think this is going to be a year for Nate Frazier. I know he will share some snaps with Chauncey, but when you look at Nate, when you look at his makeup, and when you look at, he has been the premier back, but you also look at the fact that every single year, I feel like there's 1 or 2 injuries, whether it's coming off the previous year or during the regular season, the year that keeps him from just being that stable horseback, because this is an offense that prides themselves on being able to line up, tell you they're running the football, and run the football, right? Will explosives in the passing game open up more run? Yes. Now, that is why I'm saying that I think Nate Frazier could be the biggest offensive star that's not the quarterback, because if Gunner can create some explosives this year, and we can stretch the field, and we can do some things that get chunk plays 20, 30, 40 yards, and we throw that ball better, and we get creative and get some of our speedy wide receivers, and we get creative with Dwight and things of that nature, it will open up the run more and give them opportunities that if you give them 5, Nate Frazier can turn 5 into 55 really quick. That's why I think with the passing game more improved, and I think Gunner being in year 2, if you're counting total, but year 2.5, 3 almost, when you're counting being a vital part of 1 snap away from being in that football game, and was in the Sugar Bowl 2 years ago versus Notre Dame. I think you can look and go, if this can happen, it really makes the defense look at our offense a lot different. We look less like a run first team and more like a, hey, what's coming at us right now? Because we don't really know. A couple of extra things I'll throw in there. Here's a hot take. Gunner Stockton has 30 touchdowns combined. 30 touchdowns combined. Now, let me tell you why I think that that's a pretty good take. Last year, Gunner Stockton had combined 24 total touchdowns last year, 5 INTs, 2,894 yards, and it had a completion percentage of almost 70%, right? So you're looking to find 6 more touchdowns out there, and these are combined, right? I do think that Gunner has a really good shot to hit that number. I do. because I'm once again betting on that we will be better at explosives. I think if the run game can do its job and it will open up the play action game, I think we can stretch the field more next year. We won't have to just sit back there and rely on, receivers running great routes. And hey, we know it's a run, it's a run or a pass down. I think we're going to be a little bit more complicated in some of those areas. I just do. Even though the big question is the wide receiver room, the wide receiver room. But I think we're going to be a little less unpredictable in that area, and that's going to help Gunner. And I think that does. I mean, I love that take. I think that take is spot on. I personally think Gunner can have 30 touchdowns combined. I'm talking pass. I'm talking running. All the above. Second hot take. This kind of an extra on my list. Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens have 2,000 yards combined. My answer is yes. I think this is totally doable. I think Georgia is going to line up and they are going to want to run the football and stop the run. I think that they're not going to get away from the goals of 25 and 26 because they did see a team the defense was much improved over the year before, right? It was much improved. I think we stopped the run at a higher level. I think we allowed some things to happen that shouldn't have. I think we didn't get a lot of great pressure again. We didn't create havoc, and we allowed the quarterback to have too much time. And when you combine that with a really great tackling defense and a really disciplined defense, if you can add those things to it, it makes this team much more explosive, and it gets them off the field much quicker, right? We don't want to see these sustained drives of 10, 15, 20 play drives like we saw against Ole Miss at sometimes. We want to see this team, causing havoc and creating explosive plays on defense and getting off the field, which will give the opportunity for the offense to do the same. I do think that Chauncey and Nate have an opportunity to grind out a lot of yards this year. So my answer on this take is yes. I think both these guys can combine. I think Nate Frazier can have a really, really solid year. I think when you look at Dante Dowdell and you look at how maybe this would stretch to like a 3 deep, and I know Dwight's going to get the ball as far as in some of those cash settings, but I do think Nate's going to be able to touch the ball enough to where he's going to have the opportunity, and I think Chauncey will too. Big thing you have to wonder is there going to be some big plays in there, right? Does one carry add up to 50 and 60 yards? And if you have that, then it's much easier to come across that number, right? Here's another one. Georgia leads the SEC in sacks. Now, I want to agree with this. I want to agree with this one wholeheartedly. Could Georgia lead the SEC in sacks? I would tell you that this is going to be a hard one. And if I was calling it right now, I'd say no, because there's been no proof in the pudding, as my mom used to say, that that's going to happen. I think Georgia has a really statistically good chance for this defense to cause more havoc and to have more quarterback hurries and to have more sacks this year. But there's some really good defenses in the SEC this year. I mean, I like Oklahoma. I like their defense a lot. I like Ole Miss. I like their defense a lot. I like Alabama. I like their defense a lot at Alabama. I even really like LSU. A lot to be said there. Those are 4 teams in Texas as well. Those are 5 teams that are going to have really good defenses, in my opinion. So it's a hefty goal to say that they're going to lead in sacks, but I would definitely say that it's going to be a vast improvement from the past. And vast improvement means this team as a whole on defense goes much higher as far as statistical value of being one of the best defenses, not only in the SEC, but in college football. Next hot take, Mike Bobo wins the Broyles Award. This one's going to be a touchy one for a lot of people because it's like, there's no, like in their mind, they're like, there's no way, right? But with all the questions coming in, right? This is a team that's built for a playoff run and a national championship. And so that's one of the big questions roaming around. And, you have a lot of young guys, but also mixed with a lot of returning starters. Is this the team that's built to last, to be able to survive and to make it? Because you got to be healthy and you got to be hot. Yeah, you got to be healthy and you got to be hot. So do you have the makeup to be able to survive and get that far and be able to cause some problems? And is Mike Bobo a part of it? I think a lot of people are slowly but surely every once in a while in the off season kind of writing a letter or throwing a text message or a sidebar comment to be like, look, if you don't want Mike Bobo, I'll take him, or how much is it going to cost to interview Mike Bobo? There's a lot of coaches that might want to interview Mike Bobo, right? Mike Bobo this year got a raise. He'll be making, him and Glenn Schumann will be making almost the exact same money. It's very competitive. It's very up there with what most of the OCs are making right now. I do think that Georgia may not have the best offensive coordinator out there. A lot of people argue themselves for their offensive coordinator, but I do think they have the right offensive coordinator for Georgia. Okay. And I've been a part of this Debbie Downer scene, and, I've been a part of the Mike Bobo, draw on 2nd and 10 or run it right up the middle, or, no continuity in plays and play calling and screen passes and bubble screens. And it's like, it thinks that just people just don't like watching that, right? You turn on like San Diego State and UCLA at like 10:30 at night, and you see the ball flying all over the park, and, you got these credible catches, and you got these wide open holes, and you got these real elusive, elaborate plays. And remind you, you're not playing in the SEC, and, you're watching West Coast games that, if I had to go out there and really tell you who I respect out there, I mean, I'm obviously looking at Oregon, and we're talking completely out west, right? I'm obviously looking at Oregon. I can't say you don't like USC. You gotta think USC would be in that mix, and then if you're depends on how close to that you are. I mean, you can stretch out and look at Utah and some of those teams, but I don't think, I realistically do not think that anyone would not look at Mike Bobo and go, man, I'd have Mike Bobo. I mean, he's continuously gotten better. I mean, you look at Mike Bobo versus Steve Sarkisian, do that math for me, right? Do that math as a play caller. I might do it exactly. Honestly might do it while we're continuing to go through this stuff. But do I think Mike Bobo, I think it's set up for him to do that. I think it's set up to go, okay, everybody said you had these young receivers. Everybody said that you had to be creative, and Georgia lost too much at the receiver rankings. They're going to be running the football a lot this year and relying on the defense. Imagine if Gunnar Stockton came out and was just slinging the ball around the field. And a lot of dog fans are going to be like, yeah, whenever you see that, you let me know. Okay, you're delusional. Okay, you're out of your mind. You're obviously not a Georgia fan. But why wouldn't you think that? Gunner's a competitor. I mean, if I was going into a war, man, Gunnar Stockton would definitely be on my list. Like, he's a warrior. He's a battler. Like, he's going to pull through for you. He might not win them all, but he's also not going to be one of the ones standing on the sideline making excuses about why they did, right? His head will be held high, and he will go out there and perform. He will not think twice about the fact of giving maximum effort to win. And so for that reason, that combination of running the football, getting creative with the receivers, and trusting in Gunner to create some more explosive plays, I do think this is a pretty good take. I think you could see the Burroughs Award come straight over to Bobo. I really do. A couple other ones. We're going to do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then we'll call it a night. That's for part 1. 5, Jacoby White-Helton is an undercover Zach Brandt. Now, a lot of people don't know much about Jacoby White-Helton. A lot of people think that Jacoby's been there forever. He really hasn't. He was a person that came in with a lot of promise, had a lot of really good, God-given speed. Probably, in my opinion, was behind a little bit in development because of just learning the playbook, man. Just learning the playbook, figuring out where you fit in. You play in the slot. Where do you play? Like, what do you got to find your niche in the wide receiver room. You really do. But I think this kid can be really, really good. Like I really do. I think, will it be, you can't equivalent anything to Brock Bowers, and you can look at statistics and see what he did here and how he went about doing his business and go, if you model this, this will be a really great thing, and if you look at players like Zach Branch and Brock Bowers, combined, we got them the ball in such similar ways, but also in such different ways. So, is he a guy that's going to step in, and can you kind of just go, hey, like we're not changing anything in this area, but we're putting you in this area, and you're basically going to be Zach Branch Jr. And does he have that makeup, and is he able to step in? Is he able to do that? And the answer to that is I don't think anybody can be Zach Branch. I think he's very elusive. I think he's an incredible route runner. I think he has great hands, and I think he has great smarts about him. I think that's what's going to get him some early playing time in Atlanta. So no, I don't think you can be just like Zach Branch. However, I think Jacoby White-Hilton has some untapped ability that we're going to see this year. I think he's going to turn some heads. I think he's going to make some good plays. I think he's going to do some great things for Georgia football. And I really feel good about this kid, not because if you don't have a good feeling about it, there's not a good feeling at all. It's because realistically, I think when you look at the makeup of who he is and what he thinks of this program and how hard he works, I just really feel like he's set up for success as far as to make a difference on this team. So for me, I could probably say, yeah, he could be an undercover Zach Branch. He could be better if he wanted to. I think some of the things Zach Branch were missing were just natural ability and natural route running. I think, when you look at the problem of, when you put him in the slot, sometimes when that translates from when you're running, when you're running routes in the slot, when you're running other routes on offense, there's basically only 2 or 3 different ways they're going to try to get you the ball, including the screen pass. And when you can focus more on about how you can create and not about how you're coming across the middle, worrying about getting tore up, you get a little bit more confident about how you can go out there and create, make things happen. I think that fits right into Jacoby White-Hilton's DNA. So I would tell you, I do think he can be an undercover Zach Branch. I think he can fit into a role very similar. Will he? I don't know. On paper, I think he's close. Physically, mentally, that we haven't seen all these guys going at it in full pads and spring practices right around the corner. I mean, who knows? Who really knows? Next one, Caden Prothro, Lawson Lucky, Williams, that's Elias Williams, Jaden Riddell, Ethan Barber are the wide receiver bailouts. I 110% agree with this. Now, I still think the wide receivers have to perform, but I think you are talking about one of the best, if not the best, tight end rooms in all of college football. Hell, probably better than some NFL teams, okay? I think you're going to see Lawson Lucky take a huge step in the right direction. I still have a lot of potential for Ethan Barber. Before he got injured last year, he was going to be a key piece in this offense. I think he still has the opportunity to be a key piece easily. Obviously, when you look at Caden Prothro and you look at Elias Williams and what they bring to the table, when you look at Elias, he brings that 6'5", 6'6" frame, the athleticism on top of it that gives him that hybrid, crazy tight end look, very similar to the tight ends of the past with us. And Darnell Washington was a freak in nature. I don't think he's got as much meat on his bones as Darnell, but I think he can do some freakish things, and he can give us a lot of help in the red zone areas. And I think Elias Williams has the opportunity to have a breakout year. But I also don't want to count out Ethan Barber. Like we said earlier, he was starting for Georgia before he knocked everything out. So you hope for the best road to recovery, and you hope to see him back before, I don't know, SEC playoff time. But man, I would just say when you look at Barber, and you hope he gets back in there. You hope he's healthy, and you hope you see him where he was, pre-injury. And then obviously Jaden Riddell, I mean, he turned heads at spring. I mean, huge head turner as far as some of the athleticism, some of the plays, some of the targets that he got. And, if that momentum keeps up, you wonder about that, because you've seen some players kind of go off during the spring and they kind of become that, background piece. You don't hear much about them the rest of the time. I, for one, don't think I would love for that to not be true. I would love for Jaden Riddell to see some meaningful snaps. He's very athletic. He has great hands. He knows football, and he's going to help us out tremendously. And we haven't really even scratched the surface, in my opinion, of some of the wide receivers to kind of look at and go, where's the bailout needed? Well, if you're producing, then it's a room that's going to be full of people that are just producing together. and winning together and not having to go out there and drop 150 every single night for us to have the opportunity to win. Couple more. Georgia convincingly, this is a rough one right here. Georgia convincingly takes care of Alabama this year. Now, everybody's looking at this going, who in their right mind would make that call? Okay. I think they do. I think Georgia goes out there this year and, I think that, Keelan Russell and Alabama's defense and Ryan Williams, excuse me if I didn't call his rename or what he added to his name, but I think Alabama's going to have a hard time running the football again. I really do. You got to be balanced in the SEC. And it was a thorn in their side last year. And I just haven't seen enough to make me believe that the offensive line is going to be able to help them produce a run game this year. Neither with Ryan Grubb. If he couldn't find it last year, I definitely don't think he has the opportunity to find it this year. It will be interesting. You can find it at the quarterback position to be able to offset some of that from the halfback position. So be it. But a lot of that will hinge off of how good the quarterback play is. And I think this line's going to struggle. I think they're going to struggle to run the football. I think it's going to create problems for Alabama. I think Georgia convincingly takes care of Alabama this year. So that's just me. Oklahoma is the toughest game on the schedule for Georgia is my number 8. And I think you do have Ole Miss. You have Alabama. You obviously have what we just talked about, the statistical value of Georgia having a problem beating Alabama in the regular season, as well as Ole Miss, as well as a tough game with Georgia, Florida being played in Atlanta. And then let us not forget the fact that Georgia plays on the road against Alabama, on the road against Ole Miss. But I still do think Oklahoma is going to have a really good team this year. On paper, best Oklahoma team they've ever had. Let me backtrack. Not ever had, but in the Brett Venable era, it's the best football team he's fielded. Obviously, with Nagy running the NIL and bringing some extra coaches in, I think this is a team that's poised for a deep run in Oklahoma. They're going to be tough at the beginning of the year, regardless of if it's in Athens or not. Georgia's O-line wins the Joe Moore Award. Yes, I think Georgia absolutely has the opportunity at offensive line to win that award. I think this could be one of the best offensive lines in college football. And what is making me think that's real is the fact that Ernest Green is the healthiest he's been. The additions of Juan Gaston being in his second year, the development of Zyke Helton, the healthiness of Drew Bobo, who was not in that semifinal game last year, along with Gabe Harris. I just think this line is really, really good, and they're returning some really great depth on the offensive line. And I think it has the opportunity to not only win the Joe Moore Award, but be an incredible piece of the puzzle on why this Georgia team possibly comes back at the end of the year and wins the national championship. And then last but not least, Gabe Harris is comeback player of the year, anchors this D-line. Yes, triple yes. I think that Gabe Harris is going to be a force this year. I like what Gabe Harris did last year. I think that game last year against Ole Miss is a different game. Not only if Gabe Harris, importantly, but also Drew Bobo is in that game. I think that game is a different game from last year. So that's a wrap for part 1 of our Georgia SEC hot takes and kind of preview of Georgia football. We're going to finish it out on next time with players nobody's talking about, as well as a discussion on who's this year's on part 1 and 2, who's this year's, and I'm not going to give those away. And then talk about Georgia's biggest strengths and what could be looked at as some of their biggest weaknesses, and then even getting into a little bit of a buy sell. So this gets into like a round 3. I don't know, but and then a rapid fire. So a lot to accomplish more in these next 2 or 3 segments on preview and hot takes of Georgia before we enter into camp next week. But we are going to try to get them all in, and it's go time. So you're going to see us live more on our YouTube page, Facebook pages, and then as well as TikTok. A lot of things coming your way on TikTok, as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So if you haven't already done so, please go and like and follow us on all those platforms. That'll do it for tonight. counting down the days, 36. But guess what? We get into camp very soon next week. Don't know the exact date yet. You'll know as soon as we do. And as we get involved in that, we will start covering pretty much every single day of camp. And that will lead us all the way up to game one between the Hedges against Tennessee Tech. So you guys have a great evening, a great weekend. As always on Dogs Down South, go Dogs.